So obviously there are a billion people living in China, a billion people living in India, and those folks are going to eat what those folks are going to eat. Those of us in Europe or the United States, which is largely where our audience is, let's say they reduce their meat consumption heavily, but that meat consumption is not reduced in places like China or India. In fact, in many places in the world, meat consumption is growing as prosperity grows. So I'm actually warm toward your recommendation because I love the idea of individuals taking on things themselves as opposed to having it crammed down from the top. But I do wonder at the collective action problem that's sort of inherent here.
So India is the most vegetarian country in the world.
Right.
China recently created an initiative to reduce meat consumption by half by 2030. It's incredible. Are they going to achieve it? No. But what an incredible for environmental reasons. That was why they did it. And we have like American celebrities over there doing commercials, doing public service announcements to encourage the Chinese public to think about meat differently. Now the question is like, think about it how differently? Think about it in some sort of futuristic, I'm going to be drinking Soylent and like eating little pills for dinner? No. To think about it like their parents thought about it. And that's what we need to do here. This is conservative eating. It's not radical eating. We eat in America now 180 times as much chicken per person as we did a century ago. We eat the equivalent of every citizen in the world in the year 1700, eating 900 pounds of beef and 1,200 gallons of milk every day. Obviously, a lot of that is because of the population explosion, but a lot of it is because of the meat explosion. What are we getting for this? You know, it used to be the case, like our parents, when they would eat chicken, it would be roasted. They would buy it probably from somebody they knew. The techniques for raising the chicken would have resembled nature's cycles, you know, animals living outside, animals that did not need antibiotics, animals that did not have to be slaughtered after 30 days lest their body weight crush their bones, which is the case now. Eating animals that are capable of sexual reproduction. Every turkey you've ever eaten in your life was incapable of sexual reproduction. So does that sound conservative? Is that what we think of when we conjure the a mental image of a farm? Or does that sound like something that's being forced on us, however subtly? 20% of meals in America are now eaten in cars. You know, if we're eating all this chicken, it's not because somebody's roasting it in the oven every night and we're eating it at a table that's set with plates and silverware and the place where families transmit values and tell stories. We're eating McNuggets. So what we need is not to do something that feels weird. We need to do something that feels good. We need to do something that resembles the kind of eating that our parents and grandparents did, where meat was not, a meal was not a slab of meat that covered 60% of a plate. It included all kinds of other things, and there was some amount of meat. And I think we can do that. I don't think it's a pipe dream. If you were to ask me, what are the odds that half of Americans or half of Europeans or half of Chinese are going to be vegetarians in 10 years? I would say 0. What are the odds that half of the meals eaten in America and in Europe and in China are vegetarian in 10 years? I would say, I think that could happen. I don't know if it's likely, but I think it could happen. And for me, the best way of moving into that thought experiment and to moving in, hopefully, into a kind of optimism about it and an empowerment is to engage it on a person-by-person basis. So like I'm sitting across from you, right? You've acknowledged that climate change is happening because of human activities. You've acknowledged that it is going to be a problem at some point. We don't know how big a problem it's going to be. We don't know when. It's going to be a problem at some point. The kinds of adaptations you've talked about are suggestive of your thinking it's going to be a big problem if people are going to have to leave cities. That's a big problem. You agree that animal agriculture is, if not the most important thing that an individual can do, changing our relationship to animal agriculture. If it's not the most important thing, it's one of the most important things. So what seems possible to you? I'm not talking legislatively or probably, just in your own family.
No, that's why I say, as I say, I don't know how big a problem climate change is going to be, but I also hear the idea that on an individual level, if there is something that I can do to mitigate the chances of bad things happening in the future, and on an honest level, if it's not at too much cost to me in my personal life, then I'm willing to do it. And that's one of the things that I actually do enjoy about the book, is that you actually talk about your own struggles with the, I'm a crusader, I'm a visionary, I'm going to do this, and then tomorrow you're eating kind of what you want. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Ben Shapiro Show Sunday Special. If you did, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you stay up to date on all of our future content.